I am recording.
You got my audio back?
Yeah, we're set. All right, I'm getting started. So welcome to the 19th Paparelli Zoom chat for entrepreneurs. I thank you all for coming. We are in the 5th month of this social distancing for those of you who are counting. Most of us aren't anymore. It just seems to be normal. Yesterday was interesting. I was on I got invited to attend a technology executive roundtable meeting. Of course, they did it virtually. Bill Leonard hosted the meeting, and he put together a really incredibly gifted panel of CEOs to discuss how to maintain a thriving culture while working remotely. By the way, for those of you who are interested in TER, and you should be, they put together some pretty good programs, but you can contact me or Bill and we can get you hooked up. But here's what impressed me about what these 4 CEOs had to say. And it was that they completely changed their business to meet the challenges of this social distancing. They figured it out. The proof was in they're doing increased hiring, they have increased sales, and they have increased productivity in this environment, which was kind of mind-blowing for me. So not one of them was pining, if you will, for the good old days, or waiting for when this thing is going to be over so we can get back to it. This is how we're going to work going forward, and they were clearly comfortable with it. In fact, one of them I thought made an interesting statement. He said, going forward, commuting is dead. I thought, like, wow, that was Matt McConnell that said that. But they were a bit soft on answering a question that said, what is the emotional impact of work from home on your employees? And I think that they were soft on it because all of their focus for these last 5 months have been on the business processes that keep their business alive and thriving. And they've been successful with that. But what about the employees and their issues? Mark McLean, who's the CEO of SailPoint and a public company located in Austin, Texas, was on this call. And he said, and this is a quote, "My employees' personal lives are spilling into their professional lives like never before." My employees' personal lives are spilling into their professional lives like never before. Which brings us to today's topic, which is work from home. You're in it together. This is the Paparelli Zoom chat for entrepreneurs. It's the interactive forum for you to discuss your issues and opportunities. We bring entrepreneurs and leaders of businesses together because it's a pretty lonely job out there. And we wanted you to learn from this and share your experience with each other. So I really do believe that together we are stronger, which is why I started this thing a while back. And we are a community of entrepreneurs and small business people. There's a resource tab at paparelli.com. This includes valuable information that was shared by you as CEOs that you found helpful and you wanted to share with others. The house rules are going to be listed in the chat. Use the chat to ask questions. John Marshall is monitoring the chat for us. And he'll jump in from time to time if the questions you ask are appropriate for the conversation that we're having at the time. So I'm going to leave that to John to kind of moderate that. But if your question doesn't get asked, you can ask your question directly to our guest after the Zoom chat is officially concluded at 9:45. Our guest has agreed to stick around for an extra 15 minutes until 10 a.m. So to get into the meat of things, we start off with a quote from Scripture, our entrepreneur thought of the day right from the Bible. It says, "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked. And this is from Mark 10:51. Jesus asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" He's not quoted on this a lot, but he sure asked this question a lot. And the application I see here is, this is the question we should be asking our employees who are working from home. And remember, as Mark McLean said, the boundary between personal life and professional life is graying. And it's really, I think, on its way to extinction. My guest today is David Clapp. David's a really close friend. We've worked together on my most successful investment ever as an angel investor, which was Tax Partners. In 1998, David gave up his fast-track career at Coca-Cola to join this little startup, and he became the VP of sales. And what that meant, he was the one and only sales guy that we had. So he had to make things happen for us. He went on to build, though, a successful sales team. And eventually, even after we sold the business, he became the vice president and general manager for that business, and he ran it for Thompson Financial. But he decided that he needed to move to a new career after hitting the top corporately. And he decided to follow in his father's footsteps. His father was a very successful executive recruiter in the healthcare hospital space, finding hospital CEOs. Dave made his leap into executive recruiting 10 years ago. And I remember back then he was just hoping it would work. He had no idea. He always approaches things with such high confidence that he goes in. I've only known Dave, and that makes him always work harder, and it always makes him successful. He's now, of course, the top producer for CarterBaldwin, and using his general management experience as now the managing partner of CarterBaldwin to lead and continue to build the business. He has over 30 people working in the firm, and they're all working for him. Almost all are now working from home. So that's my background on Dave. Dave, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. You unmuted?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're in good shape here.
Glad to be here.
Glad you could do this. So
See
tell
some
us,
old
why don't you
friends.
give us a little context, a little bit about CarterBaldwin and what's happening there.
All right. Yeah. So for those that don't know, CarterBaldwin's a retained executive search firm. We've been around for about 20 years. We have 6 partners, kind of 8 total that are, out managing clients, and the rest support us in delivering searches. We're a super core values driven firm. About 6 years ago, we went through a process to identify what the core values were of the firm. And
what was the process that you went through?
well, it was just
And
as
that's
I'd taken
funny.
over.
CarterBaldwin's been around for how long now?
20 years.
Okay. You
20
joined
years.
10 years ago.
I joined 10 years ago.
Right. And 6 years ago, you did a core values process.
I did.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you do that? Was that your idea?
It was.
Okay,
It was.
cool.
I was kind of nervous about it too, because it's a pretty loose and entrepreneurial place, and it felt pretty corporate to my other 2 partners at the time, and so my other 3 partners at the time. And we actually hired a good mutual friend, John Ritchie, who came in and helped us identify what our core values were. I felt like we needed to do that because we had, we were starting to grow pretty significantly. We were hiring people, and when they wouldn't fit, it's kind of like the cobbler's children, where the shoes were no good or didn't fit. We're a search firm, and we were hiring people, and they weren't always working. And we really didn't have a context for explaining why. Most of the time, it was like, well, they just didn't really fit. They weren't really us. And so we went through this process, and it actually is really relevant, I think, in the context of this shift to remote we've been in, because we identified these 4 things. We're positive people, time is precious, we strive for results, or we're serious about results, and we strive for 100% trust. And that was kind of the DNA. I mean, it was not this aspirational thing on the wall. Certainly it is that, but it more defined kind of how we did things here. And it's one of the things that—
What did you learn about the process by going through the process?
What did I learn about which
process of doing values? When someone says, you hear people say, oh, yeah, you need to have values. And so you put together a process, and you get together and you decide. They're more aspirational, as you say, as opposed to real values. So
these were not as aspirational for us. So the process that we went through, and what I think was particularly valuable, It was more, who are we? Not
Yeah.
so much, who do we want to be? So,
Well, that's what real values are, right? It's
I
hard
think
to get
so.
to those though, because sometimes you don't want to say who you are
That's right.
because it
That's
doesn't
right.
sound as aspirational.
These were really us. And it was amazing because it was kind of eye-opening for me because, in the years that have unfolded since then, we've talked a lot that if we were going to design a great search firm, we'd design it to have those values. And so I think we were fortunate to have them. And that's what we identified. But the values that we had were formed and operated and grow in community. Because one of the other characteristics of CarterBaldwin is we always, as an operating principle, have been in one office all together. A lot of search firms grow and they'll set up offices in other country or in other states. And we've never done that. We've really steered clear of that and felt that there was something really important in just operating as a single operation. Here in our offices in Atlanta, we do stuff all over the country and in
You
other
were saying
countries
though,
too.
and I cut you off a little bit on this, where you were saying that it's appropriate that these core values are appropriate to the conversation that we're going to have today. Why is that?
Yeah, just because they operate and grow historically when we're together, and when we all ran for our homes. Over time, I think they came under a little bit of assault. I've even talked about among our, the colleagues at our firm that, COVID's attacking our values a bit because we're not used to operating, interacting, growing, et cetera, in our homes. We're used to doing this together. And we really, as we continued to design the firm, once we'd identified these values, we designed our office space. We designed the way we do meetings around them. So we meet almost like agile software development teams, constantly in person. We have stand-up desks. We don't sit in conference rooms, but we get together in person and kind of play off each other. Right. And that's really hard when you're home, because you almost have to schedule that time. And so much of the rhythm of this place was impromptu, and kind of keying off of each other. We're a big feedback culture too. And
so how did this, yeah, go ahead.
That's okay. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so how did, when we were talking, which kind of got me so interested in this, is you told me how this was affecting you personally. Yeah. So instead of you sitting there as sort of the CEO, is to say, now you're just an employee, right? Here I am, this employee in this executive search firm. You just happen to be leading it, but it had an impact on you. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Because you're working from Alabama too a lot.
I was. We've got a home over on Lake Wedowee. I spent the first 4 or 5 weeks mostly over there. And, I think this thing tipped everybody, me also, into a period of, stress that we hadn't experienced. I was thinking this morning, I opened my drawer to get an English muffin out this morning. And I'm like, it wasn't that long ago, I couldn't find English muffins at the grocery store, and everybody was kind of stressed. You used a word that was interesting. You used a word when you talked to me, malaise. Yeah. That was, it's not often used, but it captures an awful lot of emotion. I mean, so tell us about that and how you were feeling here. That unfolded, I think, over time in this. There was a period at the beginning where at least I felt like 3 or 4 weeks we'll probably be back, more towards normal. And then, days went to weeks went to months, and here we go. I remember in May thinking, I may not be in church on Christmas Eve holding a candle singing Silent Night. And it was like, boom, it just kind of hit. And I was experiencing that with a lot of the folks in the company. And so that malaise became this kind of groundhog day.
Before we get to the other folks, I still want to drill down on you. So I really want to know. So how did it, so what kind of thoughts were you having, when you were going through, when this washed over you and it started to become these sort of long-term, like you said, I'm not going to be in church on Christmas Eve. I mean, that's thinking way out there now. And
Yeah.
which usually when you're sort of in this malaise, it's sort of, it just drives you deeper into it.
Yeah.
So what was that like? I mean, what were you thinking?
There's some fear.
Yeah.
For sure that exists. Is this the new normal? How am I going to respond to this? Search is a business that doesn't typically thrive when you're in a recession. And so, there's fear about my individual practice, the practices of our firm. I will tell you, I really felt some of the fear and uncertainty that I think our team felt in the midst of this, because they get it, and our competitors are laying people off, and the stock price of Heidrick and Struggles and Korn Ferry, dropped. They lost 40% of their firm's value in like weeks, and so I personally was feeling that anxiety too, and like, how do I tell them everything's going to be all right when I don't know? I don't even know. And so
So how'd you answer that question?
Well,
that's a really good question. How do I tell everybody everything's going to be fine? And I don't think everything's going to be fine, or I'm not sure it will be, right? I mean, that's what you're saying.
Well, for me personally,
but you're the leader.
I'm the leader, and I started to focus more on kind of building back the routine that I had when I was coming to the office every day. My quiet times in the morning had gotten kind of leaky, and you're sleeping a little later, and that got me kind of raggedy. Everything blends together, days and nights and days and weekends and all of that kind of stuff. So I did that. But I've used a coach over the years some, and after about a few weeks, I emailed my coach, and I kind of stopped using them, and said, "Hey, I'd like to get back on your rotation." And she said, "Sure. How about next month?" And I was like, "How about this afternoon?" And so we started back up that afternoon. And
what was really the first thing that you guys talked about? Well, she said, "Okay, so here I am. What's the emergency, Dave?"
Yeah, it's more, how am I doing, and how am I feeling, and trying to navigate this firm through something we've never experienced before. So it was really about working on me, I think, and helping me to kind of deal with the some of the issues that I was thinking through and struggling with. I'm not sure this is the direction you want to take it, but I also personally had to reevaluate why I'm doing this. And
that's a really good one. Okay. Yeah, go that way.
I'm 55 years old. Search is a really hard business. I mean, you got to get up every morning and go make it happen. There's nobody else doing it for you. And so, and in this new operating mode, and I'm a people guy too. So, I'm not going to work by myself in my house for the rest of my career and be a healthy guy. That's not going to work. It's not going to work for Clapp.
Clapp's making his transition to introvert. Yeah, this is going to be good.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to be pretty for anybody. And so, so I really started to evaluate, like, why do I do this?
Yeah.
And do I want to keep doing this in the one life God's given me to live? Is this it for me? And can I be effective in this, in this mode that seems to just be going indefinitely right now? And so it forced me back towards purpose and why I do what I do. And there was kind of a doubling down for me in this. And frankly, it was in my quiet times. In John, Jesus talked about the fact that I came to give them rich, abundant lives.
Right.
And it was like, it clicked for me in the midst of that's why I do what I do. We transform lives here, and it's our clients. This all sounds like mom and apple pie and God and country, but this was the point where I kind of put my chips back on the table.
This is authentic. You tell them this is your process you went through. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so,
We'll
so
judge you later, okay? Don't worry
that's
about it.
good. That's
All right.
good.
Go ahead.
And so it was kind of pushing my chips back on the table personally that like I'm in because and I'm gonna work to try to do what I can to move people towards a more rich, full, and abundant life in the places where God has me. And He's got me here right now. And I've got clients and I got candidates that I work with, and I've got a team of 30 people that I've got leadership responsibility for. And so I'm in. And so, you know, it's not like this was a one-day thing, but part of this process, I think, of focusing me more and more on like the needs of our team here was me having to go through this thing. Like, this is really hard, and it's kind of knocked me off my my position.
I think that what you're saying is very important. You know, I think that it's, as a leader, I think it's important to recognize, you know, what you're feeling and what you're going through before you can actually lead. Okay. I mean, if it's just always, hey, I'm okay, you know, let me fix you, you know, let me help you, you know, you
Right.
have to get right with yourself. You got to know who you are and deal with that, you know, and this revisiting purpose, you know, and having gone through this malaise, I think gave you that bridge to kind of get to your employees. So how did it move from you to them?
Yep.
Yeah.
Two ways, I think. One, and some of this, I'm such a people guy that I mean, some of what I'm going to describe, we put in place early on. You know, so there was a little bit of a parallel path of me trying to scramble to serve our team here, you know, while I'm trying to take care of myself at the same time. So those were evolving at the same time. But you know, I early on started doing one-on-ones with almost everybody in the company, and so
This is before you went through this process yourself?
yeah. But I mean, I think the process was happening with me, but there were, you know, I shared with you kind of some of the big points along the way.
I got it.
You know,
Okay.
I was wrestling with it,
Uh-huh.
you know, already some. Um, but like I started doing one-on-ones with almost everybody in the company, and I would schedule these weekly, and then I started scheduling bi-weekly.
What was the point?
And how are you doing? You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you? How's your family? And it was interesting as I was engaging with people, you start to see the stress they're experiencing in their lives. You know, one of our guys in research has a special needs kid. You know, all of a sudden he's home in a small house with 3 kids at home. His wife doesn't work, and someone is, you know, I'm like, how are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm pretty good. I'm good. And then the door opens and his son comes, who's 16 years old, sits in his lap, and I'm like, that guy's got a lot on his hands at home. And you know, you just see, you know, people are struggling to try to figure out how to work and handle their kids, and they're probably concerned about their incomes, and I mean, I know they were, and all of that. So we started to do some little things just to try to show we care. So we've
Okay.
got a
Let me go back to this guy that
go ahead.
when his son got on his lap, before we get to your things that you get to there, is
Yeah.
what were you thinking? What was the impact that had on you at that time?
Um,
Because
boy, do
that's a
I.
very that's a uncomfortable situation, you know, as the sort of the leader of the firm. You're talking to this guy. He's not one of your partners,
Yeah.
right? And his son gets
No,
on his lap, and there you are in the middle of it, and
I
you
think I had.
say,
I think I had
"Hello."
two. If I can go back and excavate what I was feeling in that,
Yeah.
was probably two things. One was, wow, do I have it easy?
Uh-huh.
And two was, we need to crush it as a firm. We need to do really well because that guy needs us. And
No
so, you know,
kidding. Okay.
we have a responsibility, you know, an opportunity, you know, let me say that, to thrive as much as we can in the midst of this.
I love
And
that.
you know, it's, yeah, I think
I
that's what I
love
felt.
that. I would have never guessed that would have brought that second piece, which is to say, we need to crush this. We need to do really well as CarterBaldwin. We need to make this all work for him and his son, as well as for ourselves. That's fabulous. I love that. Okay, so what are some of the other things that came to mind? I mean, you're saying, you know, there's a lot going on for these people at home in their lives. That's the other piece that was there, right?
So, you know, part of this is you just start kind of, work is home now. And so I feel like I got to almost reach into their homes. I talked about our values at the beginning. We did a lot to, I would say, care for our employees and create community here. You know, I talked about how we do our meetings. We don't use conference rooms. We meet out in the open. Nobody's got doors on their offices. We're a very fluid kind of everybody's in each other's faces culture, real fast pace. You know, we meet every Monday morning at 8 a.m., CarterBaldwin, 30 people all meet together in person in the break room. We go through every single search in the company, you know, 50, 60 searches. And so there's a rhythm.
Everybody knows what everybody's doing.
Everybody knows what everybody's doing. Every Friday, we have lunch together as a company, 30 people. We shove the tables together. And so there's a real community here. And, you know, that got lost.
There's a real pace too.
There's a pace, for sure. It's fast. And it's one of the things I love about this place, because I would revert to a slower pace if I weren't here. So it keeps me going, which I love.
I believe
you know,
that.
we were losing some of that. And so, you know, we tried to do some things for fun, right? So we put happy hours in. We have a happy hour still every Friday at 4:30. Everybody's, you know, on their porches. And so you're in their homes, right? We do a lunch on Tuesdays. We're doing book clubs, you know, so we're doing all that kind of stuff, which is nice because it's creating connection. But I felt like that even became kind of redundant, and there was almost some malaise in that. Oh, it's happy hour again on Friday. So one of the other things that started to happen as this thing dragged on is the stress of school started to hit our team. First, there was all this debate. Do I send my kids back to school or not? Because remember, in the public schools, at one point, people were going to have the option to either do remote or send their kids there, and there was a lot of stress on the parents.
What were they telling
families? I don't know what to do. If my kids are at home, I don't know, you know, how work's going to go, because that was really hard last spring.
Yeah.
But if I send them back to school, are they going to shut it down? And what do I do? And is this COVID danger? You know, it's just all this kind of tumbling around.
The uncertainty, the first uncertainty that we went through, which is interesting, it was a phase, which is the uncertainty of the business, right? Am I going to still have a job? How is this going to work? What if I don't have a job, right? And then the uncertainty, as you're saying, is you recognize the uncertainty moved to home. Now the uncertainty is me, right? Like, what's my life going to be like? Not the business, but what's my life going to be like? But go ahead.
Yeah. And to be clear, it does impact how people perform.
Yeah.
You know, the stress that people are experiencing outside of this, you know, when emotions go up, functioning goes down. And so, you know, this cool little in the community, fast-paced organism that we'd created here is, you know, taking some blows in the midst of this, and our performance can suffer a little bit.
Did you ever get to a point where it went from community, meaning we all get together at 8 a.m. on Monday mornings, okay, and we all know all the searches that we're all doing, to every man for himself? Did you start feeling that it started moving in that direction?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
You know, we work on sub teams, you know, so it never became solo like that, but for sure. There's an element. Yes, I won't extend it. You bet. You're
That's just
feeling
an
some of
interesting. I can hear it, that's where it would go naturally. I mean, that's where it would go for me if I'm working at home and I have kids and I'm not sure if they're going to school, and my wife, she's got her occupation. I mean, she's got her career and what she's doing, and how, you know, what if she's a teacher? You know, I'm dealing with that with my daughter. You know, is she going to school? Is she going to work at home? If she works at home, she's got 2 little kids. You know, is grandma going to come and help her? You know, all of this kind of, so I could see all that, but it takes me away from that 8 a.m. Monday morning meeting. I mean, I'm not thinking that way anymore.
Mm-mm. That's
So I
right.
think this is something we need to recognize. So what did you do with the schools, with all this school stress, if you will,
Well,
the
so,
uncertainty?
so the counties, I guess, kind of decided for everybody and said it's going to be remote. And so then there was another wave of panic that, rolled through, the families that are here that have kids in school. So now I know what I got to deal with. How am I going to deal with it? Because I got my kids at home and I got to work too. So, we're actually pivoting. We've got,
When did you make a decision? This is important, I think, is when did you make a decision that it's your problem? I heard yesterday, for example, from some of those CEOs on the TER meeting, they're going like, oh yeah, these are really problems that these people are dealing with. And they went right past it. It wasn't theirs. Okay. You took it as, I need to do something about this.
Our partners talk about it. And so I think we always knew that it was going to impact us. But to some extent there is that's outside of work. So you got to deal with that, and you better be on your game between 8 and 5. And I think both of those forces were at work. Probably for me, there was I don't want to make this too hyperbolic, but there was a point with one of my colleagues here where over about a week, their performance started to drop, and it was impacting a couple of projects I was working on, and I was getting pretty upset. And I decided, I probably need to. I think I used the term with you, like jerk a knot in their tail, over Teams, right? Which is always effective, when you do that over video. And but I learned that this person had their daughter had lost. Their daughter's friend had lost both their parents from COVID the week before. Only child, dad died on Sunday, mom died on Thursday. And so my colleague, who has a lot of concern about COVID, anyways, is doing everything they can to keep it together. And, and I kind of, on this call, was thinking, I'm gonna provide some feedback. Like I need more from you, and I could tell that she wasn't good. And so I finally went, "Are you okay? I'm worried about you." And started crying. And I'm like, this is her issues that she's dealing with are super impacting her ability to perform, and it's kind of real life. And it was time to trade maybe some truth for some grace in that moment. I think we need both grace and truth. But in that moment, I was like, I need to acknowledge the real issues and stress that this person was dealing with. So I think it amped up this notion for me of the more we can help our people be successful at home with their families, whatever they're dealing with, it's the right thing to do. But by the way, it helps us too. So
But I think what you're saying is that that story actually makes the point of McLean, where he's saying that line between our business lives, our professional lives, and our personal lives is actually graying out. Okay, in this work from home environment, is that as an employer, okay, or a leader, I need a greater understanding of what they're dealing with at home, okay, so that we can build an effective team. That's like a very big thought that we never had really before. It was like, keep your home, you come to work, you're in this environment now, let's just kind of be heads down. So what did you do with the school? I want to get to that, because I think it was pretty, once you decided to address it, I thought it was interesting what you did. Tell us about it.
Well, we're trying to do a bunch of things along this line of, how can we help them navigate through this? And it does go back to the purpose I talked about before. If we really do care about helping transform lives, then you got to kind of be all in to the extent you can be. So we've got 4 interview rooms, a conference room, 3 writing rooms. here. We've got killer bandwidth, and we're probably, you know, having 4 or 5 people come into the office on any given day right now, you know, at the max. So we said, let's let the families of CarterBaldwin use our space to do school. And so we are now having signups, and people can bring their kids in for a half day or a whole day or a couple days a week or whatever they want. They can have a private room with great bandwidth, do their remote school. We've set up a break area for the kids up front. We've hired a tutor that is coming in Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, and parents can sign up. I mean, here's just another crazy example of where it bleeds together. How many of you could help somebody with high school trigonometry right now if your kid's at home? I couldn't. And I got a master's in finance. I couldn't begin to do it right now. And and none of the parents at CarterBaldwin can do that either. So we hired a math tutor. And what we're hearing as we talk to the families is, like, math is especially hard remote. And so, you know, we got a big whiteboard in our conference room, and we've got a tutor on one side, and people can sign their kids up to spend an hour with them and, you know, be in person, socially distanced, and just help them get to the other side. And I think the key in it is, it's not, this is going to sound all, you know, mushy, but it's not, we really do care. I think. I know I do. I hate to see the stress on these people's lives. And yeah, it absolutely helps us perform better if we can eliminate that stress. But, you know, at the end of the day, you got an opportunity to serve the people that you're around right now. And so we just jumped on the opportunity.
And so what happened from the other side? So when you sort of announced this, they're actually doing it now, right?
It's starting. Yeah. School started this week.
What kind of, how has that, like you said, I have all this stress because of this school and all this uncertainty and all that, and you put this in place. So what was the result from their side? It's one thing, you know, a lot of times we, as leaders, we solve a problem and we go, man, that was just great. And everybody else is like, no, it's not great. Right. So is it great?
I think it's good, and it can become really great. You know, it's kind of the first week of school right now. So I think people are still transitioning into school. We've got a couple of kids that are signed up this week. The tutor stuff starts next week. So we're gonna see how it unfolds. I think that I know there are some right now who are accessing it. I think there are others that are seeing how school is going to unfold that will access it.
Yeah.
I think, I believe, and I hope that it'll be an opportunity for some people just to get out of their houses for a little bit, right? You know, get a break, come into another environment, as opposed to doing school, you know, in their underwear at home or whatever's happening.
Well, you're also sharing some of their responsibility. I mean, the fact that you have a tutor, for example, you know, and you're creating this, it's sort of a space between, oh, I can outsource my kids' education, right? I send them to public school or private school, whatever, to now it's all my responsibility. Well, now there's this sort of hybrid that you've created here.
Yeah. I think so. I will tell you, one of the other benefits of it is people that don't have kids and are dealing with this are speaking up and saying, wow, you know, we work for such a cool place. You know, I'm part of something, you know, and it's not a thank you as much as it is, I'm really glad to be a part of this gig that we've all got here.
That's an important piece that you're bringing up there, is that, so what's been the biggest impact on the employee base? Okay. Has it been the programs, or that you've kind of put the ideas that you're kind of putting in place? Or is it the fact that one of your core values is actually being demonstrated?
I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
I think it's the latter. It's not a program. I think this COVID thing, I said to you last week, I said, you know, COVID eats culture for lunch, you know, because I think
COVID,
you know,
Culture.
COVID eats culture for lunch. Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And, I think COVID eats culture for lunch. And I mean, you got to fight to keep it in this. You just got to fight. We had a partner call a couple of weeks ago, and I've got one of our key leaders, lives alone in her apartment, an amazing part of our firm. And one of my partners said, I think that person's really struggling right now. And, I called him up that morning. We met, sat outside and had hamburgers for lunch. Just a small thing. It's not a program, but it's this just fight to keep.
So what's
the
it like?
fact that we're in our homes.
What's it like to work at CarterBaldwin now versus what it was like to work there in February?
That is a great question. Wow. I think we've lost some of the fun and the connectivity that we have together, but I think we're more real with each other. And, it doesn't necessarily happen as much, with collective stuff, but I think in smaller groups and one-on-one, we're all kind of fighting through this together. And so, one area has ebbed and another area has flowed a little bit.
This is it. But if this is it, you're saying we're fighting through this together. But if this is it, like I said, Matt McConnell said in another meeting I was in, commuting is dead. If this really is it, what does that say for CarterBaldwin then going forward? There's no Monday morning, 8 a.m.
I think we'll be fine. I really do. I think we'll be fine. I talked about
that pace. You got to keep that communication. These are the issues the things that you addressed with in-person programs now have to be still addressed with a distributed workforce.
Well, the other thing is purpose. And I told you what I went through. And I told you at the beginning of this, how we started 6 years ago and we did our core values. Well, there's kind of the core values are kind of a how, right?
Yeah.
But there's a why and a how and a what. And so I went through this process of, do I want to keep doing this? And then I pushed my chips on the table and I said, I'm in, because I get the chance to impact lives here. I'm in. Our partners are going through that exercise right now. And it's really interesting as we hired a consultant. We did it over Zoom out of my screened-in porch a couple of weeks ago, and we all talked about why we do this. And it's funny, we all do it for the same reasons. What a surprise! That was a great surprise. But and so we've got this kind of collective purpose, and we're going to take our company through a process of, and we're still figuring out how to do it, but we're going to take our company through a process of why do we do what we do here, and give them an opportunity to kind of put their chips on the table, if that's motivating. Maybe that'll sift some people in or out of the firm. I don't know. But, there is totally a making lemonade out of lemons with this. And so whatever this looks like on the other side, totally committed to having the firm get better. We are having conversations about, if you were going to build the best search firm in the world, what would that firm look like? Because we've got a little, space to kind of think that way right now. And what would the firm that's trying to become the best search firm in the world do during a pandemic like this? And so, we're asking ourselves those questions right now. And that's,
Dave, I've got to cut you off because we're coming to the end of this thing, and you're going to be sticking around after we cut this and stick around till 10 and answer more questions. But I could talk to you all morning about this. I think you've done a great job for us, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate you also being very transparent about how you were feeling and what you were doing as the way to step off into then working and building a better company. But this is an opportunity for CarterBaldwin to be an even better search firm as you go forward. And I think that's true for all of us, as opposed to waiting for this to end so we can get back to business. I think that's the big thought. So Dave, thank you so much for doing this for me. I really appreciate you. You're a good friend. But,
Thanks. It was helpful to talk about it.
yeah. Well, and thanks for sticking around too. My takeaways on this though is, I went back to, you made a comment here. I loved it, that COVID is attacking our values, and it's because of this distributed workforce that we have now. And so what you did is this revisiting purpose. Why do we do what we do? Kind of gets you to double down to say, yeah, what we do makes sense. And that's why I got into it to start with. And we have to be great at what we're doing. And that last piece that was such an important takeaway is that you really authentically have to demonstrate your values. And one of yours is, we authentically care about you. Okay. We care about each other. So I think that really paid off. But these are my insights. And I know that some of you have other insights, and I encourage you to send them to me, and I'll publish them when I do this summary, so that other people that weren't able to join us today, when they review this, they'll see those insights, and I'll recognize you for your insights. My weekly reminder for all you entrepreneurs out there, watch your cash. It goes out fast and comes in slow. So learn fast, decide fast, and go fast. And we saw that with Dave today, which has been great. Next week on August 26th, my guest is going to be Tyler Scriven, who is he's a former Techstars leader, but he's now founder and CEO of Saltbox. And we'll be discussing how startups can find those initial out of this world employees that make things happen. So sign in early to catch up early, like people did today. We got on at 8:45. We talked for 15 minutes and caught up with each other, which is a great time. And remember, I am praying for you. Thanks for attending. This will be the end of this call, this chat. I'm going to end this, and then we'll start the next piece. Thanks for attending. All right.